My name is Margaret Chen, and at 73 years old, I never imagined I'd be standing in a real estate office, signing papers to sell my beloved family home to my grandson's ex-girlfriend. The look of pure shock on Daniel's face when he discovered who bought the house he thought he'd inherit was worth every sleepless night I'd endured. But 6 months earlier, when he looked me in the eye and said, "You're useless now, Grandma," something inside me snapped. Before I reveal how his ex-girlfriend Sarah became the new owner of our family's century-old Victorian mansion, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And hit that like button if you've ever been dismissed by someone who forgot that wisdom and experience trump youth every single time. I've lived in the same Victorian house in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood for 47 years. My late husband Harold and I bought it when it was just a run-down shell, spending decades transforming it into the crown jewel of our street. Every restored molding, every carefully chosen paint color, every plant in that award-winning garden held our memories. Harold passed 5 years ago, but I maintained our home with the same devotion, knowing it would one day shelter future generations of our family. My son James and his wife Patricia lived across the city with their 2 children. While my granddaughter Emma pursued her medical residency in Boston, my grandson Daniel had recently graduated from business school and moved back to Portland. At 28, he carried himself with the swagger of someone who believed his MBA from Stanford made him superior to everyone else, especially his grandmother, who'd only been a high school mathematics teacher. The house had always been the family gathering place. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every celebration happened within those walls. I cooked traditional Chinese dishes alongside American classics, blending our heritage with our adopted country's traditions. The kitchen, with its professional-grade stove I'd saved for years to buy, was my domain and my joy. Daniel had been eyeing the house since his grandfather's passing, not with the affection of cherished memories, but with the calculating gaze of someone seeing dollar signs. "This place must be worth at least $2 million now," he'd mentioned casually during visits, pulling up real estate comparisons on his phone. "The neighborhood's really gentrified since you bought it." I'd always deflect these comments, changing the subject to his work or asking about his girlfriend Sarah, a sweet elementary school teacher who seemed to genuinely enjoy our conversations about gardening and cooking. Unlike Daniel, she never looked at my antiques like items to be appraised or suggested I modernize the kitchen I'd lovingly maintained. My daily routine kept me active and engaged. Morning Tai Chi in the garden, volunteering at the literacy center 3 times a week, managing the community garden plot I'd maintained for 20 years, and hosting mahjong with my friends every Wednesday. At 73, I wasn't just active, I was thriving. My doctor marveled at my health metrics, joking that I had the vitality of someone 20 years younger. But to Daniel, I was just an old woman occupying valuable real estate. I first noticed his impatience when he started suggesting I downsize to a senior living facility. "They have people to cook for you, Grandma. Wouldn't that be easier?" he'd say, ignoring the fact that cooking brought me joy. He'd leave brochures for retirement communities on my kitchen counter, each one highlighting maintenance-free living, as if maintaining my home was a burden rather than a labor of love. The pattern of disrespect started subtly, but grew increasingly bold. Daniel would arrive unannounced, often bringing real estate contacts to tour my home without asking permission. "Grandma doesn't mind," he'd say, leading strangers through my private spaces while discussing renovation potential and market values, as if I weren't standing right there. During Sunday dinners, he'd dominate conversations with talk of investments and his ambitious plans to flip properties. When I'd try to share news from the literacy center or stories about my garden's progress, he'd barely glance up from his phone. "That's nice, Grandma," became his standard dismissal, delivered without genuine interest. The contrast with his sister Emma was stark. Despite her demanding schedule, she video called weekly, asking detailed questions about my activities and actually listening to the answers. She'd request recipes, seek advice about dealing with difficult colleagues, and share her own challenges. To Emma, I was a source of wisdom. To Daniel, I was becoming an obstacle. His girlfriend Sarah often seemed embarrassed by his behavior. During one particularly awkward dinner, Daniel interrupted my story about teaching adult literacy students to announce he'd calculated how much my unused backyard space could generate if subdivided. Sarah had touched his arm gently, saying, "Let your grandmother finish her story. It sounds inspiring." He'd rolled his eyes in response. The financial hints became less subtle over time. Daniel would complain about his student loans while pointedly noting how much equity sat dormant in my house. He'd forward articles about elderly people who'd been smart enough to liquidate their assets early. The message was clear. I was selfishly hoarding wealth that belonged to the younger generation. My son James seemed oblivious to his son's behavior. "Daniel's just ambitious," he'd say when I mentioned my concerns. Patricia was more sympathetic but ultimately passive, suggesting I not take it personally when Daniel made insensitive comments about aging. The weekly mahjong group became my sounding board. My friend Dorothy, a retired federal judge, was particularly incensed. "That boy needs to learn respect," she'd say, arranging her tiles. "In my courtroom, I've seen too many cases of elder financial abuse that started just like this." Everything changed the day Daniel brought a contractor to my home without warning. I returned from the grocery store to find them in my backyard, measuring and discussing demolition plans for my greenhouse. "What are you doing?" I asked, my arms full of bags. Daniel didn't even help me carry them. "Just getting some estimates, Grandma." "This old greenhouse is an eyesore. We could put a profitable ADU here instead." The casual destruction of Harold's anniversary gift to me was proposed as if it meant nothing. That night, I lay awake thinking about how systematically Daniel had been diminishing my autonomy, treating my home as his future property, and me as merely its temporary occupant. My salvation came from an unexpected source: Sarah, Daniel's girlfriend. 2 days after the greenhouse incident, she appeared at my door during her lunch break, looking deeply troubled. "Mrs. Chen, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I couldn't stay silent anymore," she began, fidgeting with her teacher's badge. Over tea and homemade almond cookies, Sarah revealed what she'd been observing. "Daniel's behavior toward you is wrong," she said firmly. "I've tried talking to him about it, but he dismisses my concerns just like he dismisses you." Her honesty was refreshing after months of family members making excuses. Sarah shared how her own grandmother had faced similar pressure from relatives who saw her only as an obstacle to inheritance. She ended up in a facility she hated, and within 6 months, her voice trailed off, eyes glistening. "I won't watch it happen again." Beyond emotional support, Sarah possessed practical knowledge. As a teacher, she'd helped elderly volunteers navigate attempts by family members to manipulate them financially. She gave me contact information for a senior advocacy lawyer and suggested I document every incident of pressure or disrespect. "Not to use against him necessarily," she clarified, "but to protect yourself." Our unlikely friendship blossomed from that day. Sarah would visit on weekends, genuinely interested in learning traditional cooking techniques and helping in the garden. Unlike Daniel's performative impatience, her curiosity was authentic. She'd take notes as I demonstrated how to fold dumplings, asking thoughtful questions about the cultural significance of different dishes. Dorothy from my mahjong group became another crucial ally. Her legal background made her particularly valuable as I began understanding my rights. "First rule," she said during one of our sessions, Never let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your own interests. Your grandson is showing you who he is. Believe him. My literacy center students provided another layer of support. When I mentioned considering retirement due to family pressures, they protested strongly. Maria, a 60-year-old woman I'd helped earn her GED, stood up in class. "Mrs. Chen, you gave me the power to read to my grandchildren. Don't let anyone take your power away." Their fierce protectiveness reminded me that my life had value beyond what I could provide financially. Even Mr. Kim, who owned the corner grocery store, noticed changes in my demeanor. "You seem worried lately, Mrs. Chen," he observed while ringing up my vegetables. When I vaguely mentioned family troubles, he shared his own story of standing up to children who tried to force him to sell his business. "Sometimes," he said, "the younger generation forgets that wisdom has its own value." Sarah introduced me to online communities of seniors facing similar situations. Reading their stories, I realized elder financial abuse often began exactly as I was experiencing. Gradual erosion of autonomy disguised as concern, casual disrespect that escalated into demands, and the assumption that age automatically meant incompetence. Most importantly, Sarah helped me see my situation clearly. "You're not just active for your age, Mrs. Chen. You're remarkable at any age. You manage a complex household, volunteer regularly, maintain incredible gardens, and cook like a professional chef. Daniel's the one with limitations. He can only see dollar signs where you've built a life." The breaking point arrived on an unseasonably warm May afternoon. I'd spent the morning at the literacy center, followed by lunch with Dorothy to celebrate her winning a community service award. Returning home energized and happy, I found Daniel's car in my driveway alongside an unfamiliar BMW. Inside my living room, Daniel sat with a woman in a severe business suit, papers spread across my antique coffee table. They were so engrossed in conversation they didn't notice my entrance. "The property value alone makes this worthwhile," the woman was saying. "Once your grandmother transfers ownership, we can begin the subdivision process immediately." "What is going on here?" My voice came out stronger than I felt. Both heads snapped up, Daniel's face cycling through surprise, annoyance, and finally, dismissive confidence. "Grandma, perfect timing," he said smoothly. "This is Ms. Winters from Premier Development. I've found an ideal solution for everyone. You transfer the house to me now, avoiding estate taxes, and I'll ensure you have a comfortable apartment in one of their senior communities. It's win-win." The audacity left me momentarily speechless. Ms. Winters, sensing tension, began gathering her papers. "I'll let you discuss this privately," she said, leaving her business card on my table before departing. "You brought a developer to my home to discuss stealing it from me?" My hands trembled with rage. Daniel's face hardened. "It's not stealing when it's going to be mine anyway. I'm trying to help you, Grandma. This house is too much for you." "Too much?" "I manage this home better than you manage your own apartment. I know because Sarah mentions finding moldy dishes whenever she visits you." His face reddened. "Don't bring Sarah into this. She doesn't understand business like I do. Neither do you, frankly. You're just an old woman clinging to a house that's too valuable for you to justify keeping. This is my home, Daniel, where your grandfather and I raised our family, where you took your first steps, where—" "Exactly," he interrupted. "You're living in the past. Face facts, Grandma. You're 73. Your useful years are behind you. Now it's time to step aside and let the younger generation make something of these assets." The words hung in the air like poison. "My useful years are behind me?" He doubled down, perhaps emboldened by my shock. "Yes. You're useless now, Grandma. Useless. All you do is putter around this old house, play cards with other old people, and pretend teaching immigrants to read matters. Meanwhile, I could transform this property into something profitable, something that actually contributes to the economy. Each word was a dagger. 40 years of teaching, decades of volunteer work, a lifetime of love poured into family and community, all reduced to nothing by a grandson who measured worth solely in dollars. Get out. My voice was quiet but firm. Don't be dramatic. We need to discuss. Get out of my house! The force of my shout surprised us both. And don't come back until you remember who taught you to tie your shoes, who helped with your homework, who sent money when you were struggling in college. Daniel stood, straightening his expensive jacket. You'll regret this emotional reaction when you're struggling alone and I'm too busy to help. Think about my offer, Grandma. It's more generous than you deserve. After he left, I sank into Harold's old armchair, his cruel words echoing. But as tears subsided, they were replaced by something harder, more determined. If Daniel thought I was past my useful years, I'd show him exactly how wrong he was. That night, sleep eluded me entirely. Daniel's words played on repeat, each iteration strengthening my resolve. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I wouldn't just protect my home. I'd teach my grandson a lesson about dismissing people based on age. My first call was to Dorothy. I need the best elder law attorney you know, I said without preamble. Someone who specializes in protecting seniors from family financial abuse. Finally! Dorothy's voice conveyed both relief and determination. I'll text you 3 names. What changed your mind? I recounted yesterday's ambush, Daniel's cruel words still fresh. Dorothy's sharp intake of breath was followed by colorful language. That entitled little, Margaret, you document everything from now on. Every interaction, every threat, every manipulation. The attorney Dorothy recommended, Evelyn Park, specialized in elder financial protection. At our first meeting, she reviewed my situation with professional efficiency. Your grandson made a critical error, she said, adjusting her glasses. Bringing a developer without your consent constitutes attempted undue influence. You have strong legal options, Mrs. Chen. We discussed various protective strategies, updating my will with specific language about Daniel's behavior, establishing a trust that would protect the house from any claims, and ensuring I maintained complete control over my assets. Your mental capacity is clearly intact, Evelyn noted. I'd like to see anyone challenge your competence. Sarah called that evening, having heard about the confrontation from Daniel's furious ranting. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry. I've tried talking to him, but he's beyond reason. He keeps saying you'll come to your senses once you realize you need him. I need him like I need a hole in my head, I replied, surprising myself with the vehemence. Sarah, dear, are you planning to stay with someone who treats his family this way? Her silence spoke volumes. Finally. I've been questioning everything lately. This isn't the man I thought I knew. He's become obsessed with money and taking shortcuts to success. I made another decision then. Sarah, I want you to know that regardless of what happens between you and Daniel, you'll always be welcome in my home. Real family isn't always blood. The next weeks required careful planning. I met with financial advisors to ensure my complete understanding of my assets. The house, worth $2.3 million in the current market, was my primary asset. My teacher's pension and Harold's life insurance, carefully saved, provided modest but sufficient income. I also began documenting my daily activities, partly for legal protection, but mostly to remind myself of my worth. Monday, taught 3 adults basic computer skills. Tuesday, led Tai Chi for 12 seniors. Wednesday, helped Maria write her first letter to her daughter. Thursday, organized fundraising for the Literacy Center. Each day proved Daniel wrong. My support network rallied remarkably. The Mahjong group became my strategic advisors. My literacy students offered to testify about my mental sharpness if needed. Even Mr. Kim insisted on writing a character reference. The decision to fight back felt like shedding an old skin. For too long, I'd accepted disrespect in the name of family harmony. But Daniel had crossed a line from which there was no return. The first major battle came sooner than expected. 2 weeks after banishing Daniel from my home, James and Patricia arrived for an intervention. I served tea in my living room, noting how they sat on the sofa's edge as if preparing to flee. "Mom," James began, using his executive voice, "Daniel told us about your conversation. We're concerned you're not thinking clearly." "Oh." I kept my tone neutral, grateful for Evelyn's coaching about remaining calm. "What specifically concerns you about my thinking?" Patricia jumped in. "Throwing out your grandson over a small misunderstanding seems extreme. Perhaps you're feeling overwhelmed?" I smiled, recognizing Daniel's influence. "A small misunderstanding? He brought a developer to my home without permission and called me useless. Would you tolerate such disrespect?" My son shifted uncomfortably. "That's different, Mom. Daniel's family. He's just trying to help." "I'm 73, not 93. I teach computer skills, coordinate fundraising events, and maintain this home better than most people half my age. What part of my life suggests I need Daniel's help?" The conversation deteriorated from there. James suggested I consider therapy for my sudden hostility. Patricia mentioned senior communities with built-in social activities, as if my current active life was insufficient. They left with barely concealed frustration. The family pressure intensified. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't heard from in years called with concern about my living situation. Each call followed the same script: express worry, mention the house's value, suggest I'm being stubborn. I documented every conversation, building the paper trail Evelyn recommended. But the hardest blow came from Emma, my granddaughter. During our weekly video call, she seemed subdued. "Grandma, Daniel called me. He says you've cut him off over a simple suggestion about your future." I took a deep breath. "Emma, your brother didn't make a simple suggestion. He told me I'm useless and tried to steal my home. Would you accept such treatment?" Emma's face reflected genuine shock. "He said that? He told me you misunderstood his concern." I forwarded her my documentation. Her callback came within an hour. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Daniel's been lying to everyone." Small victories emerged amid the challenges. The Literacy Center, learning of my situation, offered me a paid position as volunteer coordinator. "We've been taking advantage of your expertise for years," the director explained. The modest salary meant less than the validation. My garden became both sanctuary and statement. I expanded the vegetable plots, selling produce at the farmer's market. Chen's Kitchen Gardens became a small but profitable enterprise, each sale proving Daniel wrong. Physical challenges existed, but I adapted. Raised beds made gardening easier. A grabber tool helped reach high shelves. Adaptation wasn't admission of defeat. The attempted break-in started in July. I returned home to find my back door ajar, papers disturbed. Security cameras revealed Daniel testing keys in my locks. I filed police reports, building evidence of escalation. As summer progressed, unexpected opportunities emerged. The paid position at the Literacy Center led to consulting offers from other nonprofits seeking to improve their volunteer programs. My decades of teaching experience, dismissed by Daniel, proved invaluable to organizations struggling with retention. "Mrs. Chen, your workshop transformed our approach," wrote the director of a food bank after I'd trained their coordinators. Each success story reinforced my worth in ways Daniel's cruel assessment had tried to destroy. The farmers market venture grew beyond expectations. A local restaurant owner, impressed by my pickled vegetables, requested wholesale quantities. "These are exactly like my grandmother made in Taiwan," she said after tasting my pickled mustard greens. "Could you supply my restaurant weekly?" Technology became an unexpected arena for growth. Determined to document everything professionally, I mastered cloud storage and digital filing systems. My literacy students were amazed when I created digital tutorials. Mrs. Chen's tech tips became popular enough that the community center asked me to teach senior computer classes for pay. Sarah remained a constant bright spot. As her relationship with Daniel crumbled, our friendship deepened. She helped me create a website for Chen's Kitchen Gardens, photographing products and writing descriptions. "Your grandson has no idea what he's missing," she said one afternoon. "You're one of the most capable people I know." Financial literacy became another focus. I enrolled in online investment courses, understanding every aspect of my modest assets. The instructor often called on me to share practical examples. "Mrs. Chen brings real-world perspective," he announced. My mahjong group evolved into an informal support network for seniors facing family pressure. Word spread about my successful resistance. Dorothy dubbed us the Gray Panthers, and we wore the title proudly. Physical fitness became political. I joined a senior hiking group, tackling challenging trails. Posted photos on social media, me at summit viewpoints, sweaty but triumphant. Directly contradicted narratives about frail elderly. Sarah often joined these hikes, our unlikely friendship puzzling those who knew the backstory. The house itself became a teaching tool. I hosted workshops on maintaining older homes, sharing accumulated knowledge. Young homeowners eagerly took notes as I demonstrated proper maintenance techniques. "Your grandmother's a treasure," one attendee told James. His discomfort was visible, each small victory built upon previous ones. The volunteer coordinator position led to speaking engagements. Restaurant supply requests expanded to catering small events. Computer tutoring evolved into creating a senior tech support network. Emma visited during her vacation, spending a week shadowing my activities. "Grandma, you're busier than most of my colleagues," she marveled. Her public Facebook post about my achievements, tagged to ensure Daniel saw it, garnered hundreds of likes. By August, transformation was undeniable. Income from various ventures covered expenses and allowed charitable contributions. My calendar overflowed with meaningful commitments. The woman Daniel had dismissed had become professionally busier than during my teaching career. The relationship dynamics within my family shifted dramatically as summer ended. Daniel's desperation manifested in increasingly aggressive tactics, while unexpected alliances formed among those who witnessed my transformation. Sarah officially ended her relationship with Daniel in late August, citing irreconcilable differences. She appeared at my door the day after, eyes puffy but resolute. "I couldn't marry someone who sees family as obstacles to wealth," she explained. "When he started calculating inheritance timelines, I knew I had to leave." The revelation sickened, but didn't surprise me. Sarah maintained our friendship despite Daniel's fury. He accused me of stealing his girlfriend, unable to comprehend that his own behavior had driven her away. James struggled with divided loyalties. During a tense Labor Day dinner, he attempted mediation. "Mom, Daniel's your grandson. Surely you can forgive some poorly chosen words." "James," I responded carefully, "if an employee called you useless and tried to steal your assets, would you forgive it as poor word choice?" Patricia surprised me by speaking up. "She has a point, James. We've been making excuses for Daniel's behavior for years." The admission cracked something in my son's defensive posture. Later, while Patricia helped clear dishes, James quietly acknowledged, "I know Daniel's been inappropriate." I just don't know how to handle having my son and mother at odds. You handle it by recognizing that your son created this situation through greed and disrespect, I said gently. I love Daniel, but I won't enable his worst impulses. Emma became my fiercest defender within the family. She created a presentation for relatives showing my community contributions, complete with testimonials. Anyone who calls Grandma Chen useless is either ignorant or lying, she declared during a family video call. The extended family's response split predictably. Those hoping for eventual inheritance remained concerned about my stubbornness. Others expressed genuine admiration for my independence. My mahjong group provided consistent emotional support. Dorothy helped me recognize manipulation tactics. See how they never ask about your teaching or volunteer work? She pointed out. Only about the house. The literacy center community embraced me protectively. When Daniel appeared one evening, attempting to embarrass me, students rallied to my defense. Maria stood up, sharing how I'd changed her life. Other students joined, creating a wall of support that forced Daniel to retreat. Sarah's presence in my life evolved into chosen family. She helped with garden work on weekends, learned traditional recipes, and brought teacher friends to buy produce. You're the grandmother I wish I'd had, she confided. Mr. Kim became an unexpected ally, sharing his own story of resisting family pressure. Professional relationships also shifted as organizations competed for my consulting time. Even dynamics with Harold's memory evolved. Where grief once dominated, gratitude emerged. The house he'd insisted we buy had become the foundation for continued independence. By September, family gatherings had reconfigured around new alliances. Emma visited monthly, bringing friends to enjoy home-cooked meals. Sarah joined naturally. James and Patricia attended cautiously. Daniel remained absent, his attempts at manipulation thwarted by my support network. October arrived with unexpected revelations that set the stage for my ultimate decision. Emma, during one of her visits, let slip crucial information while helping me prepare for the autumn festival. Grandma, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but Daniel's in serious financial trouble, she said, carefully pressing dough into mooncake molds. He invested heavily in cryptocurrency that collapsed. He's been borrowing from everyone. The news explained his escalating desperation. How much did he lose? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Everything. His savings, maxed credit cards, and he owes money to questionable people. He's been telling everyone he just needs to access his inheritance to fix everything. I absorbed this information while continuing to shape mooncakes. My grandson viewed me as his financial lifeline while simultaneously declaring me worthless. Sarah confirmed the situation during our weekly tea. He's been sleeping in his office, she revealed. Lost his apartment last month. That's why he's become so aggressive about your house. The irony wasn't lost on me. The brilliant MBA who'd dismissed my financial wisdom had gambled away his future, while my conservative investments remained stable. Evelyn Park called with her own update. Margaret, Daniel has been approaching lenders using your house as implied collateral. He's suggesting he'll soon have power of attorney over your assets. The violation felt like physical assault. What are my options? I asked. Several, actually, but I have a particularly interesting suggestion. Evelyn's tone held mischievous satisfaction. Dorothy's mahjong group became a war council. You need to act decisively, she advised. Desperate people do desperate things. As if to prove her point, I discovered evidence of attempted break-ins. Security footage showed Daniel testing keys in my locks at night. I filed police reports, documenting the escalation. Then Evelyn presented her brilliant suggestion. What if we arranged a private sale to someone Daniel would never expect? Someone who'd appreciate the house's true value beyond money. Who did you have in mind? I asked. Evelyn smiled. Sarah mentioned she's been pre-approved for a mortgage. With her teacher's salary and first-time buyer programs, she could afford it if you were willing to sell below market. Imagine Daniel's face when he discovers his ex-girlfriend owns his inheritance. The poetic justice was perfect. Sarah, who'd shown genuine kindness and become true family, deserved to build her life in a home filled with love rather than greed. But I couldn't accept such generosity, Sarah protested when I proposed the arrangement. The house is worth exactly what someone who'll love it can afford, I countered. Besides, Daniel valued this property only monetarily. You value it for the memories and meaning. We began quiet preparations. Evelyn handled paperwork discreetly. I sorted through possessions, deciding what to keep for my planned condo. The Literacy Center offered to name their computer lab in my honor. Local newspapers requested interviews about my volunteer work. I found a perfect 2-bedroom condo in a senior community with garden plots and proximity to the Literacy Center. The closing dates aligned perfectly with my plan for revealing everything at a family dinner. The house closing was scheduled for November 15th, exactly 6 months after Daniel had declared me useless. I invited the family for dinner on November 17th, ostensibly to share important news about my future living arrangements. The preceding days required careful orchestration, moving essentials to the new condo while maintaining the house's lived-in appearance took strategic planning. Sarah, Dorothy, and Emma formed my covert operations team. On closing day, I sat in the attorney's office watching Sarah sign papers with trembling hands. I promised to take care of it, she whispered, tears streaming. Every garden bed, every memory, I'll honor them all. I know you will, I replied, sliding the keys across. That's why it's yours. The sale price, while below market, remained substantial. After paying off the small remaining mortgage, I had enough to purchase my condo outright and establish a scholarship fund at the Literacy Center. November 17th arrived crisp and bright. I'd prepared an elaborate feast in my new condo's kitchen, all the family favorites. The dining table, rescued from the old house, barely fit but maintained continuity. James and Patricia arrived first, bearing wine and wary expressions. Mom, this place is lovely, Patricia said, genuine surprise coloring her tone. Emma bounced in next, immediately exploring. Grandma, this is perfect, close to everything, great security, and that kitchen. Daniel arrived last, 15 minutes late, clothes wrinkled and eyes darting nervously. Nice place, Grandma, he said stiffly. Downsizing makes sense at your age. I smiled serenely. Actually, I've upsized in many ways. Would you like a tour? The condo tour revealed my new life's richness. The second bedroom served as an office, walls covered in appreciation letters. The balcony garden already showed promise. Every corner reflected purposeful living. During dinner, conversation flowed more easily than in months. Daniel remained largely silent, picking at his food. Finally, Patricia raised the inevitable question. So, Mom, what happened with the old house? I set down my chopsticks deliberately. Actually, I sold it. The closing was this week. The silence was deafening. Daniel's fork clattered to his plate. You... what? Without telling us? Family had 6 months to show interest in me beyond my property value, I replied evenly. Only Emma did so without ulterior motives. James found his voice. Mom, who bought it? Someone who'll cherish it properly. The proceeds are already allocated. This condo and a large donation to the Literacy Center. Daniel's face cycled through emotions. You had no right. That house was supposed to be... it's family legacy. Interesting perspective from someone who brought developers to subdivide that legacy, I observed. But yes, It will remain a family legacy, just not our family. Who? Daniel's voice cracked. Who did you sell it to? I'd planned this moment carefully. Sarah. I sold it to Sarah. The explosion was immediate. Daniel shot up, chair toppling. My ex-girlfriend? You sold my inheritance to my ex? I sold my house to a woman who showed me kindness when my own grandson showed contempt, I corrected. This is elder abuse, Daniel sputtered. You're clearly not competent. Emma stood then. Try it. I'll testify about Grandma's complete competence. So will her doctor, lawyer, and the dozens she helps weekly. Patricia added quietly, Daniel, you created this situation. James looked between his son and me, finally seeing clearly. You called her useless, didn't you? Daniel's rage crumbled into self-pity. I needed that house. You don't understand. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. You ruined yourself with greed and poor decisions, I said firmly. The house was never your solution. He stormed out, slamming the door. The remaining family sat in stunned silence until Emma began slow clapping. Grandma, that was beautiful. Poetic justice. We finished dinner in thoughtful conversation about family patterns and breaking toxic cycles. As they prepared to leave, Emma pulled me aside. Sarah texted me. She's already planted bulbs for spring. The house is in perfect hands. 6 months later, I stood in Sarah's garden, admiring the tulips and daffodils she'd planted. The afternoon tea party celebrating the Literacy Center scholarship recipients filled the house with warmth and purpose. Mrs. Chen, I can't believe this is where you lived, Maria said, cradling her acceptance letter. The scholarship would allow her to pursue community college while supporting her family. Sarah emerged from the kitchen carrying my famous almond cookies, now made from the recipe I'd taught her. The house feels honored to host this celebration, she said, beaming. My new life had settled into satisfying rhythms. The condo provided perfect balance, privacy when needed, community when desired, morning Tai Chi on my balcony, afternoon tutoring, evenings with chosen family or peaceful solitude. Consulting work had expanded beyond expectation. Organizations nationwide sought my expertise in volunteer management. The Chen method became shorthand for treating older volunteers as skilled assets rather than free labor. Daniel's journey took a different path. After hitting bottom, he'd finally accepted help. Not financial bailout, but genuine support. Emma connected him with credit counseling. James insisted on therapy. Slowly, he began rebuilding. His first genuine apology came via handwritten letter 8 months after the house revelation. Unlike his manipulative performance at the Literacy Center, this showed real reflection. We met for coffee on neutral ground. Gone was the designer clothing and artificial confidence. Grandma, I'm not asking for forgiveness yet, he said carefully. I know that's earned. I just want you to know I finally understand what I lost. Not a house, but your respect. Love was never lost, I corrected gently. Respect and trust, yes, but love endures even when we must protect ourselves. Our relationship began tentative reconstruction. He volunteered at the Literacy Center, initially court-ordered for minor fraud charges, but continuing voluntarily. Watching him help elderly students with technology felt like cosmic justice. Sarah had transformed the Victorian into a community hub. Monthly potlucks brought neighbors together. The greenhouse Daniel wanted demolished now supplied seedlings for urban gardens. You gave me more than a house, she told me during one visit. You gave me purpose and a model for living generously. The extended family dynamics had permanently shifted. Those who'd pressured me found excuses to avoid gatherings. Others, seeing my happiness, drew closer. James and Patricia became genuine supporters, their enabling patterns broken. Patricia joined my mahjong group, eager to learn from women who'd navigated similar challenges. Emma flourished in residency, citing our experience in essays about patient advocacy. "You taught me that age doesn't diminish personhood," she wrote. Dorothy celebrated her 80th birthday by starting a legal aid clinic for seniors facing family financial abuse. "You inspired me, Margaret." The Literacy Center's scholarship fund grew through community donations. Local media coverage attracted corporate sponsors interested in supporting elder-led initiatives. Physical changes came naturally. Arthritis progressed, requiring adjustments. But these normal processes didn't define my capacity any more than Daniel's cruel words had. I dated, surprisingly. Robert from Tai Chi shared my love of gardening. Our companionship scandalized some. Apparently, romance after 70 surprised people. On the second anniversary of Daniel's declaration, I received the city's Elder of the Year award. Daniel attended, sitting quietly in back, tears visible when I spoke about transformation through adversity. "That comment was meant to diminish me," I said from the podium. Instead, it catalyzed growth I hadn't imagined possible at 73. Later, Daniel approached hesitantly. "Grandma, I'm proud of you, and ashamed of myself." "You needed hard lessons about value and respect," I replied. "My refusal to enable you was its own form of love." He nodded, understanding finally complete. "I love you, Grandma. The real you." "I love you too, Daniel, the person you're becoming." Life at 75 exceeded any expectation. Not easier. Purposeful living requires effort, but richer, more authentic than decades of accepting disrespect. Sarah's careful tending kept the Victorian blooming. I visited monthly, bringing preserves for her community markets. My condo's efficiency suited this life stage perfectly. Daniel progressed slowly but genuinely. He'd never reclaim imagined inheritance, but gained something valuable: authentic relationships based on respect rather than transaction. The wisdom gained crystallized into principles I share. Your worth exists independently. Family love doesn't require accepting abuse. Age brings limitations but also advantages. Community trumps blood when blood proves toxic. Never too late for growth. Financial security matters less than purposeful living. Forgiveness follows accountability. The greatest revenge is living well. Every ending enables beginning. These principles guide my continued journey. The Literacy Center thrives. Sarah honors the house's history while creating new stories. Daniel builds his life on solid ground. Emma advocates for elders' dignity. Dorothy's clinic protects vulnerable seniors. From pain came purpose. From rejection, redirection. From one cruel comment came catalyst for becoming more myself than ever. To those dismissed or declared irrelevant, your worth exists independent of recognition. Your contributions matter. Your growth potential doesn't expire. Sometimes critics reveal our hidden strength. Daniel thought he stated fact, calling me useless. Instead, he issued a challenge I didn't know I needed. Thank you for joining my story. May it remind you that every ending opens beginning. Every rejection redirects toward better, and those who dismiss you might give the push needed to prove how essential you really are. Like and subscribe if this resonated. Comment your experiences of being underestimated. Together, we prove wisdom and determination trump youth's arrogance. The greatest revenge isn't punishment. It's living so well that those who dismissed you become irrelevant to your joy. That's the Chen method. Invest in yourself, choose your family, and never let anyone convince you that your useful years are behind you. They've only just begun.